Tyler pulled his little white pickup, the one that said Stanley's Home Healthcare, into the driveway of 385 West Elizabeth Street. He had a lot of geezers on his route, but Mr. Kearney was the one he actually looked forward to seeing every week. Today was also a very special day. Mr. Kearney, according to his brother, had been asking for Tyler since he got up. He was stepping out today, he said, and he wanted to see his favorite nurse one last time. Tyler had worked as a home health nurse for years, and he found the work to be rewarding. Not in the way that most people would consider nursing to be rewarding. Tyler didn't like people. He actually felt that the best thing many of his clients could do would be to die. He didn't enjoy his work because he was helping people or easing their suffering. At the end of the day, Tyler hadn't become a nurse out of any misguided ideas of helping or easing or even curing anything. It was just the easiest excuse to touch them. Not in a weird way. Tyler wasn't a pervert who liked to prey on the weak. No, Tyler had discovered at a young age that when he was touching someone, skin to skin, he got a little more than just a sense of closeness. Tyler had cried a lot as a baby. His mother often said so, and it had led her to keep her distance. Tyler's mother had been a nurse too, and her busy schedule had led to a long line of faceless nannies and professionally cold caregivers that watched Tyler until she could come home and take a few hours with him before bed. Tyler's mother was a lot like these so-called professionals. She didn't like having a kid who wasn't happy to see her, who didn't laugh and smile and say her name, a kid who reminded her of his father, who had left before he had even been born. Some of this detached selfishness was probably thanks to her, but there had been a very good reason that Tyler had cried any time she had held him. Tyler could see things that she kept deep down in her mind, and when she picked him up, his childish mind couldn't make heads or tails of them, and they had frightened him. That's what Tyler assumed, at least, because he couldn't remember that far back. His first conscious memory of exchange was when he was 4. He'd been staying with his grandparents for the day, something that became more and more common as his mother began to date again, and he had nearly fallen down the stairs on their front porch. His grandfather had caught him by the wrist when he tumbled, right before he would have bashed his head on the bottom step, and he caught a quick, harsh glimpse of a man burying something on the edge of the property. It was a box, but whatever was in it, Tyler wouldn't find out for many years to come. His grandpa had set him on his feet and asked him if he was okay, and Tyler had nodded as his mind began to put 2 and 2 together. He wore a lot of sweaters and long sleeves after that, realizing that skin-to-skin contact was necessary for the transfer. He didn't start using the power for more than little peeks into people until he was in high school. A bump in the hallway showed him that one of the football players who liked to pick on him was seeing another member of the football team romantically. He used this information to stop the bullying and, indeed, to make him his personal fist against a few other people who were bullying him. He discovered that he could look at people's secrets, at their deepest thoughts, and it helped him get ahead. Suddenly, Tyler knew things that no one should, and he could use those things to get what he wanted. He took people's secrets, he stole their treasures, and he blackmailed them with their sins. He did all this with a touch, and it served him well throughout his life. It was a wonder that the black site didn't take notice of him, but he managed to slip under the radar and make it to adulthood with all the little secrets he had collected. As he entered adulthood, he followed his mother's example and went to school to be a nurse. It wasn't hard. He could get the answers with little more than a bump or an errant foot, and it stuck with him. What's more, Tyler discovered that he could retain the information that he stole. It helped him get through nursing school, and after graduation, it helped him better his lot considerably. Tyler knocked on the front door, and Roger Kearney smiled as he saw the bulky man in the red scrubs. "Good morning. He's been asking for you, T. Started asking right about breakfast. He says today's the day, and he wants to talk with you one last time." Tyler smiled. "Is he sure? His vitals looked good yesterday. Maybe it's just gas again." Roger shook his head. "Nope. He says he's stepping out today. He can just feel it." He let Tyler in, the shoes staying at the door, as he went down the hall to the room that Mr. Kearney had been staying in for the last year and a half that Tyler had known him. He had been staying there for closer to 5, ever since his cancer refused to be treated with radiation and the other drugs that the docs usually gave you. But hospice had only been something that they talked about above a whisper since the year before. Mr. Kearney had been through a couple of nurses, but he asked for Tyler by name, and he was one of a few patients that Tyler enjoyed seeing. He was one of the few that Tyler didn't use his power on. He was one of the few that Tyler didn't take advantage of. Tyler had never discovered empathy, and healthcare hadn't helped with that. As he worked with the hospice patients on his route, changing bedpans and cooking meals, he would learn things about them. He would learn which old men had done things with little girls. He would learn which old ladies had money buried in mayonnaise jars in the backyard. He would learn who had a checkered past and who had secrets too dark for polite company, and he would use it to his advantage. If it was a hidden treasure, something he didn't think the family would miss, he would take it. If it was a secret, he would use it to get money from the oldsters of their family. He was never violent about it, but he rarely needed to be. He could just mention that he knew it and threaten to tell if they didn't make it worth his while. Most of them were so surprised that he knew it all that they paid him on the spot. No one had ever complained, and if they threatened to, then he would threaten to tell. In the end, all of them paid what he wanted, and what Tyler wanted, he got. He knocked on the bedroom door, and Mr. Kearney cackled his name as he told him to come in. Mr. Kearney lay in his bed as the machine made a soft noise beside him. When Tyler had first met him, he had still had some meat on his bones, but time had not been kind to him. He looked like a skeleton in striped pajamas, and he smiled wetly as he turned his head to look at Tyler. Mr. Kearney looked like he was on his way out, and Tyler had to admit that the old guy might be right. "I'm glad you made it," Kearney said, wheezing a little as he reached for his oxygen mask. "You kidding me?" Tyler said as he took a seat. "Who else am I going to talk to about baseball? What's all this bullshit about you dying? You fit as a fiddle." "Yeah," Kearney wheezed. "A fiddle in a concentration camp, maybe." He took a long pull from the oxygen mask, and his chest rose and fell like the bags they used when they did CPR. "Nah, T. I'm on my way out. Before I go, though, I wanted to talk with you." He turned to look at him, and Tyler could see something in his eyes. Was it fear? Apprehension? He didn't know, but Tyler supposed that he would be a little scared too if his time was running out. The old guy didn't sound scared of croaking, though. He was scared of something, but Tyler didn't think it was of dying. "I haven't been entirely honest with you. When I saw your name pop up on the list of nurses, I thought it was deja vu. I mean," another puff off the mask, "no one gets that unlucky, but I guess it was luck on my part. I mean, what are the odds you would turn out to be the same kid from before?" Thomas felt his eyebrows knit together. "What are you talking about, sir?" Mr. Kearney took another pull off the oxygen mask, sighing as he lay back. "I'm rambling. Sorry, kid. Let me start at the beginning. You can do something special, can't you? Maybe it's telekinesis, maybe it's mind reading. The site wasn't really sure, and our equipment was kind of old, even when I was new. He took another pull off the mask, and Tyler felt a little chill run through him. You skipping your meds, Mr. Kearney? You aren't making a lot of sense. Kearney shook his head. It's fine, kid. You're too old for the site to come after you, and no one's gonna believe a dying old man if I spill the beans. Doesn't matter. I didn't call you here so you could verify what I already know. What I wanted to tell you is that I know, and you were only having this conversation because I failed in my mission on April 14th, 1993. The only one I ever failed on. He took a pull from the oxygen mask, and Tyler felt his fingers grip the arm of his chair. Mr. Kearney, what are you... Don't interrupt me, kid. I haven't got long, and I need to get it all out. You told me once that you liked finding out secrets, and this one's a biggie. I told you I used to work for the government, right? You know, I retired from my job, and they still pay my health insurance and all, but the sector I worked for is a little different, I suppose. Technically, we worked for the Department of Defense, but good luck finding us on an expense report. No, I was employed by an entity known as the Black Site, or Two Trees, they call them sometimes. Specifically, the 12th one. Black Site 12 is interested in using kids with special powers to help maintain security, but I don't think most people know what they're securing us from. Anyway, I was with a group called Acquisitions, but we always called ourselves Snatchers. We grabbed kids, most of them from orphanages or halfway houses, and brought them to the site. It was high-profile work, but my unit never got picked up by the cops. I had to run when a parent caught us. We were always professional, always successful, least until it came time to snatch you. Tyler could feel his pulse in his wrist. What the hell was this old man talking about? He'd been right. No one would believe any of this if he tried to tell them, because Tyler didn't believe it himself. Of course, there was an easy way to verify it, but Tyler wasn't quite sure he dared. What if Mr. Kearney was right? If Tyler had saw someplace full of kids, saw Mr. Kearney taking them, what the hell would he do? We got orders from Security Chief Mansfield, and after surveilling you for a while, it was decided that we'd get you on the way home Thursday. You always walked home after school, and your mother always came home at 6, so we weren't afraid of being interrupted. I was going to be doing the snatching. My partner Doug was there to talk to parents and drive the car. And when you got off the bus, we were ready. The hair on the back of Tyler's neck stood up. He remembered this. When Mr. Kearney had rattled off the date, Tyler felt something tickle at the back of his mind. But now, the memories came flooding back for the first time in years. April 14th, 1993, had been the scariest day of his life. How had he forgotten it? It had made him careful after that, made him more watchful. He couldn't imagine how he could have ever forgotten it, but he supposed the edges had softened after a while. Nothing had happened, not really, but apparently something had happened. His instincts had been working, but Tyler had convinced himself that they hadn't. He'd been 9, and his mother had finally told him that he was old enough to get himself on and off the bus. She had given him a key and made him promise not to talk to strangers, and told him to lock the door behind him. They had moved recently, his mom wanting to live a little more independently from the judgment of her parents, and she had drug her only son along so that she could feel like she wasn't shirking her responsibilities. It hadn't lasted long. By the time Tyler was 11, he was living with his grandparents again because his mom had a new boyfriend. But the 2 years that they had lived together in the house in Chapel had been nice. Not so nice that day, though. "You got off the bus and headed up the sidewalk as it pulled off. We pulled up behind you then." He'd been heading for home, thinking about what to watch on the little TV in the kitchen as he did his homework, when the hairs on the back of his neck went up. Someone was watching him. Someone was after him, and he remembered increasing his speed a bit so that he could get home faster. He could hear the soft purr of an engine not far behind him, not like the usual growl of a car going its usual 30, and he felt a breeze as he stepped off the sidewalk and into the neighbor's front yard, cutting across it to his own house. "I'd meant to grab you off the sidewalk. Quick snatch and grab, but you stepped out of the way too quickly. I had the door open. My fingers brushed the strap of your bag by the tips, and I swore under my breath as I was forced to improvise." The sound of shoes hitting the pavement had stopped Tyler and made him turn. The man was suddenly running towards him, a big blond man in a blue suit, and Tyler had started running. Somehow he knew if this man caught him, it would be very bad, and he thundered up the steps to his house like a horse. He had the key in his hand and rammed it home, unlocking the door before running in and slamming it behind him. The man had been at the bottom of the stairs, sprawled across the boards and looking up. He had caught one of his loafers on the steps, and Tyler could see the tear in his knee of his pants as he tried to get up. Tyler slammed the door in his face and locked it, running to the kitchen to get the phone and call for help. The cord joggled and bounced behind him as he came to peek out the living room window. But as the operator picked up to ask about his emergency, he saw no one trying to get through the door and shakily hung up the phone as he crouched in the living room, preparing to hit redial if he saw them again. "I figured you had called the cops, that being what they teach all you kids when you're in trouble, and I hightailed it to the van. We got out of there, and when we called in to report, they told us to never mind. They said they had another kid. Someone Team 6 had picked up, and they didn't need you anymore. Your name was floated a few more times, but the science guys didn't think you were up to snuff. I figured that was the last I'd see of you. I'd snatched and lost, but when I saw your name in the book, I picked it out of curiosity. First time I saw you, I knew it was you. It's the kid. The kid. The eyes were the very same." He and Tyler sat there for a moment, the two of them silent, and then Tyler asked the question he had kicked around since Mr. Curdy started talking. "Why are you telling me this?" "'Cause I thought you should know. I'll be dead by dinner. I got a pretty good feeling about that. And you aren't the only reminder of my old sins. This cancer in me isn't natural. It's left over from the black side. Something about being around that place and interacting with all those kids. It's my burden. It's my reward for what I've done. And I'll gladly die for it. I did it for my country, for the secrets they keep from all those kids before they spring it on them." "And what secret is that?" Tyler asked, not able to help himself. He sat back a little as Mr. Kearney held out a hand. We suspected that what you had was touch activated. At least we did after observing you. Go on. Get it for yourself. Tyler's hand shook a little as he reached out, but when he took the old man's wrinkled starfish of a hand in his head snapped back and his eyes rolled up. This was different than it usually was. He saw things he didn't want to remember. He saw the cold, sterile halls of the black site, the kindergarten, the dorms, the kitchens, the distraction rooms, heard the voice of Cutter, and shivered as the voice of a corpse that now ran the place spoke to him. Worst yet, there was something worse than all of that. Something much worse that awaited all of them in the end. They didn't know it, but some of them would learn about it, and it would end them. The rest of them would be used up, Tyler breathed. Mr. Kearney took his hand back and pulled from the oxygen mask. You're a monster, Tyler breathed, and the old man nodded. I am what I am. I'm too old to change it now. Why did you tell me? Tyler asked, feeling those memories etch themselves next to the others he kept there. Doesn't matter, Kearney said. It's your secret now. Tell it, keep it, do whatever you want with it. At the end of the day, it won't be any use to me anymore. Tyler stumbled out then, feeling the knowledge weigh on him even then. Damn you, he whispered, teeth gritted as he stumbled out of the house. He needn't have. It was very likely that Mr. Kearney was already damned. Roger looked confused as Tyler ran from the house, and he stood on the porch and watched as Tyler fled up the road. Tyler wondered if the man knew any of this, but he doubted it. There was no way someone could live with and care for someone after knowing a thing like that. Tyler got the call that afternoon that Mr. Kearney had died, and he had to stop himself from saying good. 'Cause it wasn't good. Now it was Tyler left to keep this terrible secret as he sat in his apartment and chewed it over. He wished the old man hadn't passed it on, and it made him wonder if he'd ever be able to take another secret again. In the end, it hadn't been empathy that had got Tyler, but plain old yellow gut fear that broke him from peeking. You're still here. Thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague here. Always a pleasure to see all my new and old viewers coming by for another one of my spooky tales. If you'd like to support the show, you can always take part in one of our channel offers through Fume or Aura, or you can just click on another video when they come up. I'd really appreciate it. For our newer viewers, we also have lots of playlists and other things if you'd like to get caught up. I know some of my series have been going on for quite a while. If you'd like to get my latest book, there's a link down below that'll take you to my Amazon page. Towesey Homestead just came out, so if that's something you'd like to get your hands on, go ahead and have a look down there. If you'd like a signed copy, you can go ahead and email me from my email address on the site, and I'll get with you about shipping information and ship you a signed copy. If you'd like to support the channel in a more monetary fashion, we also have membership through YouTube, and we've got a Patreon that you can get the information for in the description. We have lots of tiers and everything to suit your needs. Patrons that support on the $10 tier, that's our Ghostly Reader tier, get a book anytime I write one, signed and on their doorstep. As you may have noticed, there's a list of patrons and members on the screen, and I'd like to personally thank every one of them for taking a hand in the future of this channel. Well, that's enough for tonight. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.